Change takes time, growth takes work, but showing up every day is progress.
This is the 365 Proof Podcast, where we share real stories, honest conversations, and practical insight from mental health experts, addiction specialists, and people living the message.
If you're looking for guidance, inspiration, or real insight into recovery and purpose, you're in the right place.
Welcome back to the 365 Proof Podcast by Defining Wellness, where we hear real stories about recovery and all things mental health, from industry experts to people living the message. I'm your host, Daniel Phyfer, and today I am joined by a special guest host, Jeff Skillen.
Hey, Daniel. It's great to be here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Jeff is the founder of Skillset Enterprises and also is a podcast veteran himself on the Mastermind podcast based out of Nashville with Snapshot Interactive. So,
yep. Always happy to host, co-host, and then guest. So
yeah, you're just geographic change. That's all it is.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to be in the 601 today.
For sure. And we are joined by a special guest, our Chief Executive Officer, Drew Rothermel.
Happy to be here, guys.
And, you know, we're looking forward to getting into the history of Drew and how he ended up here in this podcast studio at Defining Wellness in Brandon, Mississippi, and all the experiences he's had in this industry, the changes, and we're excited. So,
yes. I mean, so if you've been in the field for a while, I mean, you certainly know Drew and you certainly know of Drew. You know, Drew has worked at some of the premier names in our industry. I mean, I'm talking Karen, talking Hanley, talking Origins, and now bringing all that wisdom and experience to hear at Defining Wellness. So, Drew, super excited to have you on today.
Happy to be here.
Awesome.
Well, why don't we just jump right in? And you know, we mentioned a couple of the places, and that's just a snapshot of some of your experience. And I'm curious how that background and then working in those organizations is like. How's that informed what you're doing here at Defining Wellness?
Well, I think the benefit of all that experience over that period of time, and the field changed drastically over that period of time. So there've been a ton of changes, but you know, I've picked up something important along the way at each of those places that has positioned us to put together a plan here at Defining Wellness to really thrive in our current in the current environment the field finds itself in.
Well, so I mean, that environment is what? I mean, it's like we know because we see it every day, but for the people that are listening, how's it different today than when you got into the field?
Well, it's changed a lot. I think how treatment's delivered has changed somewhat, but how it's paid for is radically different. The availability of different options is far more, and frankly, it's available to a much wider group of the populace because of the advent of the Affordable Care Act and Parity Act as far as like mental health benefits under all insurance policies. So those things have changed it. There's been it's interesting. There's been a vast proliferation of treatment beds across the country over the last 20 years. But when you look at the incidence of addiction and mental health issues, the growth has really only kept up for the increased demand. So the gap of people not getting treatment remains about the same as it was 20 years ago, which is pretty surprising. That's considering crazy. The number of beds that are out there at this point.
Well, I mean, that sort of begs the question, if we haven't closed the gap, but both lines are going up and to the right, does that mean that there are more people in need of service, or is that more people that just had never raised their hand needing service?
I think it's more people in need of service, and the one factor that's always been a major component, in particularly as it relates to SUD treatment, is stigma and denial. And with those two factors, the the number of, or the percentage of people who don't access care that need it has always been around 90%. So we're treating the 20% who can overcome the stigma and reach out and raise their hand for care.
Drew, you're an attorney by trade. So let's back up a little bit and talk about how in the world you ended up in treatment.
I am an attorney by trade, and it's interesting that when I first started working in the field, that actually was a very necessary skill set. But my story is I found recovery early in life. Finished college, went to law school sober. Swore I would never have anything to do with treatment from a professional standpoint. And then, had a bunch of corporate law experience. And then I found myself with the opportunity to join Care and Treatment Centers as the chief financial officer little over 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Time flies.
Time flies for sure.
So, do those legal chops still show up today for you, or are you also like a recovering attorney as well?
It's valuable. It's it's just sort of the learning to think like a lawyer, learning to work like a lawyer. Being able to just tackle piles of mind-numbing work is it's a skill set that has value anywhere in life. But when I got into the field, NIMBY was a huge issue, much bigger than it is now.
NIMBY, for those who are listening, is not in my backyard, and so we fought a number of these battles all across the country, right? In terms of people just not wanting to necessarily open their neighborhoods or their communities or their counties to mental health or substance use treatment. So,
and I was in a position where Karen had a NIMBY issue right in front of it when I got there, and we were able to lobby the state of Florida to change their drug and alcohol licensing law, and also go after the local municipalities. And to the credit of the to the credit of the management team and the board of directors at Karen, those bets really paid off, and we were able to greatly grow and expand the treatment in the communities they were located in, and also sort of more importantly for the field, the legal cases that we won set the precedent for major growth in the field, particularly in South Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So attorney, CFO, and you've been an operator, now a CEO. When you switch to those roles, obviously there's new things to learn at every level, I would imagine. And now you're kind of sitting at the helm, having knowledge of all things that involve a treatment center. When you made that shift from being attorney to handling finances to COO, now CEO, you had a seat to all of that with everybody that you were next to, I'm just curious, what were your challenges as you moved into being an operator from that point?
Well, I think the important thing was when I got into the field, I understood corporate infrastructure, systems, risk management, and really treatment. All of treatment is risk management. So that was a very important skill. And along the way, I learned. I was very curious, and I learned about operations. And honestly, in our current iteration here at Defining Wellness, I've learned more detail about sort of the underbelly of how a treatment center needs to operate than I did in any of those other roles. So yes, I have I've learned learned a lot along the way.
Yeah. Are there any nuggets that come to mind when you think about some of these previous organizations that, where you were and it's like, oh, I'll never need that. Oh, it's like, what's the point in learning this? And all of a sudden it kind of taps you on the shoulder and it's like, I'm glad I learned that.
Well, I think that most people that look at opening a treatment center or running a treatment center are very focused on the clinical program. And the clinical program is critical. It's absolutely critical. However, treatment centers don't fail because they have bad clinical programs. Treatment centers fail because they can't fill beds, and they fail because they can't convert treatment services into cash. So at the end of the day, it's not easy to build a clinical program, but there's a roadmap for it. But getting the mix on the front end to generate leads, convert those leads to admissions, and then on the back end, the whole revenue cycle management function is like, those are the killers if you don't set them up.
So let me ask you this, Drew. Karen, Hanley, Origins, cash pay treatment, right? So now, Defining Wellness, we're an in-network treatment center. We are known regionally, and we're known nationally on some level, right? I mean, but we pull people generally from this region of the country. Was that a big shift for you when you came in? What were the differences, and as far as some of those challenges you just mentioned, filling beds, revenue cycle management, when you're getting large checks of cash versus fighting for days for people that are sick with insurance companies, what did that shift when you kind of jumped? What did that look like? Was there a learning opportunity there for you as well?
Yeah, well, I think there are a bunch of, because it wasn't just cash pay into in network,
right?
Because it was Karen was cash pay, and at that point, filling beds was a much simpler process. Being an organization that was over 50 years old was a clear strategic advantage that we were able to capitalize to keep those beds full, keep the cash flowing, and the margins were incredibly high. So there was tons of room to make mistakes. And then at Origins we had a cash pay model, but we also had an out of network billing model with a cash pay component. So that was slightly different. But going into a straight pure play in network model is very different. And one of the things that the capital groups in this field, whether it's private equity, family offices, sole proprietorship, however a facility is being owned, has touted, we can convert to in network. And I'm here to tell you, you probably can't.
Yeah, it's that's one of the toughest transitions. It's almost like the visual that I've got is, when you're driving down the highway and you're driving a manual transmission, everybody has thought, what would happen if I throw this in reverse? I mean, what would, it's like, and I hope that nobody's ever really tried to do that. It's like, but I mean, is that kind of, is that a fair sort of analogy?
I think, unfortunately, that is a very good analogy. And, I really think that if you're going to convert from out of network to in network, you probably have to plan on turning over most of your staff.
Right. And
then similarly, we did a not-for-profit to for-profit conversion, probably going to lose all your staff there too. And
are they just not able to adapt? Is that kind of what you're able to?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Not able to adapt, not able to work at the pace that is required in an in-network facility. And I've heard a lot of commentary about quality of treatment. And I will tell you that I really don't think there's that much a difference there's a whole lot more efficiency in in-network treatment, but the commitment of the staff, the work we're doing is not that much different. You're dealing with a different socioeconomic demographic. However, it's the same. It's the same, but it needs to run very efficiently.
So let's go ahead and just hop into a time machine with me for just one moment, okay? Drew, where were you when the Affordable Care Act passed? And my question is, what did you anticipate? And then what actually happened? And is that part of this transition that we're talking about?
So, yeah, I mean, I was 3 years into my career at Caron. We were undertaking a very aggressive expansion program. We had had I think we're about a year and a half into a strategic plan that was humming along. And then I'll go back just a little bit, because I think the other piece of that was how treatment centers were being owned and capitalized.
Right, totally.
And I remember when I joined Caron, they had a board meeting in Florida, and I went down there a day or two before I started my job. And that night, the first night I was there, it was announced that CRC Healthcare had purchased Sierra Tucson, which was the first mega deal in addiction treatment.
Right.
And, I think really a watershed moment, because now, the cash was flowing in. And what that created was resources, the ability to move quickly, add capacity, and just, more it was no longer going to be a field saddled with a lack of resources to provide the care. So that would have been second quarter 2005. Then you have the Affordable Care Act in 2008. And, we were clicking along, with our not-for-profit model, cash pay, 50-year-old 800 number, which was like gold.
Right, totally.
No internet yet, really.
Yellow Pages.
Yeah, Yellow Pages. We were not. I don't know how much Yellow
Y'all
Pages.
are aging yourself.
No. Well, I mean, the fact
But
that there are some people listening to this podcast that will know what the Yellow Pages
This is
are.
what
But not many.
That's what it was. So we, and what the Affordable Care Act brought about was, now you could bill out a network. You could bill out a network benefits, and that created a whole new group of treatment centers, a whole new business model. And that business model was find some cheap real estate, probably office space, and with a PHP and sober living model. Hire a consultant to get you licensed, get you Joint Commission or CARF accredited. And you just start sending these whopper bills out-of-network bills to insurance companies, and eventually they will start paying, and you can learn how to do treatment on the insurance company's dime. And that's what a lot of places did, and they were wildly successful doing it. So that caused another iteration in the payment model. And then coupled with that, facilities figured out that internet advertising was highly effective. And with a good website, every treatment center looks like paradise.
Yeah.
On the beach, even though the facility may be 8 miles inland, it looks on the beach.
In a strip mall.
And it's, exactly.
And there are still a lot of people chasing that model. I mean, everywhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, not nearly as successfully as they once were. But I mean, but it's, in search of past gold, in search of past glory.
Yes. And I think that model still works, and that model is still available for sole proprietor, recovery entrepreneur. The big difference now from 2010 is in 2010, you could roll that type of business into a private equity investment and a big exit. I would tell someone now that has one of those, make a great living at it and ride it as long as you can. Yeah. That is not something that institutional money is interested in chasing at this point.
So let me go back and just try to recapture the question that I asked, because that was a great time machine trip. Did it impact our business the way you thought it would? Or how did it actually play out in your experience?
I think from a fairly naive perspective at that time, I really wasn't expecting there to be these massive, business generational changes that have occurred. I was really anticipating it more to be just greater access to care for patients.
Right. Well, one thing to, and Daniel, sorry, this is, go for it. The dinosaurs are talking.
Hey,
so
it's good. I love it.
One thing that I think a lot of people that are listening to this podcast may or may not realize is that one of the big things that Drew mentioned was the Parity Act. And the Parity Act, I was speaking with Patrick Kennedy about how that came to be. And a lot of people don't realize that was a result of the financial bailout in 2008, where it was on the TARP bill. Patrick Kennedy went to Senator Kennedy at the time and just said, we've been trying to get parity law passed in this country, and it's been uphill. And then Senator Kennedy at the time, Ted Kennedy, he was like, well, there's a bill that is a must-pass bill. What if I were able to get this attached into that bill? And so you remember when this happened, when parity happened. And so one of the reasons that the three of us are all sitting here is because that Parity Act passed during, the Great Recession in 2008 under TARP. And I think about all the things that it's like we wouldn't even have if it weren't for that. So you remember that, Drew? Yeah. What was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, and I think the other part was that because parity was then in place and part of the landscape, it was forcibly included in the Affordable Care Act.
Right, exactly.
With between the parity component and requiring that adult children can be carried on parents' insurance well into adulthood.
Yeah,
those two factors were the ones that.
Yeah, and for our listeners who don't know what we're referring to in terms of parity, it's the simple idea that mental health, the brain is part of the body, basically. And so the idea is that anything that affects the brain needs to be treated on parity, on the same level as any physical manifestation. So, I mean, that simple concept with the Affordable Care Act really has opened the door for access to literally millions of people who need the care that we're talking about.
Absolutely. And particularly the proliferation of treatment for young adults.
Exactly.
Because that was...
I was one of them. I mean, I was 26, 24, 25. I was in and out of treatment, and, thank God I was still on my dad's insurance policy.
Target audience.
Yeah, target audience.
But I mean, that's a perfect...
saved my life.
That's a perfect example. I mean, think about it. It's like without the Affordable Care Act and without the Parity Act, Daniel, I mean, it's like we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's very interesting. All right, I've got a question for both of y'all, because y'all have both been advisors for private equity groups, family offices. Private equity's involvement in healthcare is taboo across the country for a lot of people. But I think it's important to talk about, I want y'all to talk about both of y'all's experiences with that, because, you hear it and you're like, oh, everybody's like, oh, private equity and healthcare. But, this is my only experience with Fulcrum. I mean, I feel like we're in a really good spot with them and they trust you. And, anyway, I just think it's important to talk about because it's something that is a subject amongst everybody in our industry. You still have people that don't want to believe it. It's here, right? So y'all have had experiences probably good and bad with private equity in this industry. What are some of the mistakes you've seen groups make? What are some of the things that they've been successful at? I think that's something people would like to hear.
Well, I think there are a couple key points. And first is that private equity investment has injected the resources into the field to meet the need. Without that, frankly, I don't know where we would be, but it would be light years behind. And I think that there's a myth that private equity firms don't care about treatment quality, and that is not true. They have a fiduciary duty to their investors. They have much larger. I mean, they're a much deeper pocket for liability. They care about quality. So I don't buy that argument. Operating in a private equity environment is much more complicated and difficult than in a different ownership structure, particularly a not-for-profit. You have the treatment center, which is going to run pretty much the same between the two, but you have a very complicated and leveraged capital structure on top of that. So the CFO, and the CEO really need to. There's a lot that has to happen to get that capital structure to mesh with the treatment operation. And we're talking about why in-network is now like the model is that these other models, cash pay, even out of network, they're not scalable. You can't grow them fast enough. And secondly, there's just too much uncertainty about patient levels. To really operate well in a private equity environment, if your census is modeled out at 120, you better keep it at 120. The whole, we're really down this month, but we can get back there next month. Well, what that generally means is not only you need to get back, you need to make up for the last month. And getting back the next month means being at that number the first day of the month, not the 15th day of the month.
Right.
So it's just a more complicated way to operate. Now, I think that private equity investment has brought a lot of professionalization to the field, a lot of systems improvements, and that's good. That's good for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we have to step back and take a look at, to address your question, Daniel, most entrepreneurs in this space, most founders in this space prior to private equity showing up, getting access to capital so they could expand and so that they could offer treatment to a larger segment of the population, it was really challenging. Because, most of those operations were self-funded or they had to get donors or their avenues were limited because very few programs, if you think about businesses outside of our industry, in order to get access to that kind of capital, you had to go public. And, this industry is not built to really do well in sort of a public environment. And so from that standpoint, access to capital via private equity honestly, to Drew's point, it's like I view it as bringing efficiency, bringing professionalism, and bringing access to capital to entrepreneurs and to founders that it would be difficult to do otherwise. Because I mean, self-funding the kind of growth that we need to do in order to address the needs, the public sector is doing it, but we can debate whether the public sector is doing a great job. It's like I do believe that most of the commercial insurance, most of the private sector treatment programs are probably better options for most people. Mm-hmm. And how else are you going to support that so that it can grow and expand?
That's a good point. I mean, I have just seen it. I've had a front row seat to seeing. It's been 2 years now.
Well, I mean, you bring up the ick. What's the ick for you?
Well, there was no ick. Well, let me say that. There was an uneducated ick. Mm. So I got the call that we were selling and that a group was coming in. And my first reaction, uneducated reaction, was, I got to get out of here. Because there are some bad players. You hear about it, right? And so you hear all your buddies that may work for a mom and pop spot, and they're always going to be anti-private equity. So that noise, I'll admittedly, was there for me. And I guess this can kind of segue into my first interaction with Drew, mm-hmm. where Drew and I got on the phone eventually. We both kind of knew what was going on, but Drew and I got on the phone eventually, and he was just like, this is what I'm going to do. I'll prove it to you. Like, give me 90 days. And he did what he said he was going to do. We've expanded our bed capacity. We have treated record number of patients. Our alumni program is growing. And so I've had a front row seat to seeing how private equity's involvement in defining wellness has changed everything for us for the better. I tell people that all the time. I go around, I see accounts, and I'm like, hey, yeah, we're owned by a group out of Atlanta. They trust our operators. They trust our finance guys. They let them do what they know how to do. And we have proven that we do it well. We're not flashy. Drew's a 12-step guy. Selfishly, I'm a 12-step guy. We implemented that. We implemented routine and structure into our treatment. We brought in good people. We improved our reputation, and we have helped save lives because of it at a record number. So that would be my message to my previous self and everyone else.
So I would say, okay, so the results are self-evident.
100%.
We have served more people. We are serving more people. Are we more professional?
100%.
Are we more efficient?
Yes.
And do you feel like there's the resources needed to continue to expand those services?
Yes.
Okay, so where's the negative?
I don't see one.
There you go. So it is true that not every program has that experience, mm-hmm. but I will say, just like in life and just like in business, it boils down to who you choose to be and who you choose to work with. And there are good operators and there are good equity partners. And then when those come together, I mean, honestly, it's 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And then, I mean, I've certainly seen some that have not gone well, but in my experience, I've seen more that have actually created sort of a multiplier effect than they would have otherwise.
Right.
Well, I also think that, not all private equity firms are created equal. There's no regulatory, it's not like a bank. There's no regulatory body out there that is telling private equity what they need to do and how they should act. Some are run like investment firms, some are run like consulting firms. But the firms out there that are very operator friendly are the ones that are, going to be good partners.
Sure.
And there's a lot of lip service to operator friendly. Mm-hmm. There's a contest, there's rankings, like who are the top operator friendly firms. Well, some of the ones that are at the top, like they're not, this is my second run with Fulcrum. I knew that, those guys, they go to the mat for their operators, and They provide information to be helpful. They provide support to be helpful, but they don't do that to get in the way.
Right.
So makes a huge difference.
So, Drew, I'm going to shift the conversation just a little bit and come back to what we're doing here at Defining Wellness. With that support, with access to capital, with growth in mind, Daniel talked about how we're well known in Mississippi. We're well known regionally here. How do we continue to build upon that and maintain that DNA and continue to grow? And then what do you see in terms of what does growth look like for Defining Wellness?
Well, the easy answer is we're going to continue to meet the need and help more people. But I think that we're doing a great job meeting a significant portion of the need of the state of Mississippi. But I think it's important to look at how we're doing that.
Yes.
And I'm a firm believer that treatment quality is defined by what you refuse to do. The treatment center that is everything to everybody is really nothing to anybody. It's you define yourself by what you refuse to do.
You're starting to really speak my language.
And we've had a lot of discussions here as a leadership team from a cultural development. There are a lot of places out there that claim to be national players. There are no national treatment centers, just so we're clear. Treatment is local. This program has been refined to meet the needs of the people that live in the state of Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And if you walk around this campus, I think you're going to find an accurate cross-section of the residents of the state of Mississippi. We are meeting the need. We are not out in California marketing for patients to come to Mississippi.
Right.
Makes no sense. We're, primarily in this state and the surrounding states. And we got a little business from outside the state, but it's mostly here. And, this is the model that works. And it doesn't just work in Mississippi, it will work in other locations. So, keep it local, keep it simple. Mm-hmm. We have a very simple marketing plan. We've got, thoughtful, caring folks as, boots on the ground salespeople. We've got a digital strategy that works, and we have, I believe, a sophisticated admissions process that when we find people that need treatment, we can get them in the door.
So, all right. I love this part of the conversation. I want to put a little seasoning on that little kernel of wisdom, if you will. Okay. Because I'm thinking about programs out there that do think they're national. I'm thinking about programs that have a pretty inflated sense of themselves. So, Drew, how is it in your mind? How do you differentiate people who look like they've got it going on, but they really kind of don't?
I think that when you get away from your knitting, you can't. It's not sustainable. And I think there are a lot of places out there that if they don't have trouble yet, they're on their way because they're trying to do something that just isn't going to work.
What are some of those early symptoms that you see?
Well, for the not-for-profits, it's easy. Just look at their 990s. You can see that, when their revenue is less than their treatment operations, much less their administrative overhead, that's a real problem. For the private equity back, I think when they start laying off sales and marketing leadership, that's a pretty good sign. I think that one of the early private equity tricks that never worked was, you had your business model, and then your plug figure for the business model was your revenue number, and that just made it all work without any thoughtfulness around how you're going to get to that revenue number. And the number of CMOs in this field that have lost their job because an analyst in a private equity firm plugged a number in there that was like completely unattainable it's a big number. And I think I think we're seeing that now. I think we're seeing folks looking for new ways to fill beds. And some of that's, from a sales standpoint, some of it's their digital strategies getting killed by AI. But I think that's one of the big problems. And then the other thing that I've seen is that when facilities begin to try and cut their way to profitability, if we just cut our operations staff by 30%, we'll start making money. Well, then your patient retention goes away, your risk management gets super dicey. I heard there a model out there where you have like a maximum accepted sentinel event number, which sentinel event is a death. Right. It's killing someone.
You actually made me shudder when you said that.
Yeah. And there are people that manage to that. And there are people that have, it's crazy that's a model. But all these places that are running into problems, it's generally a revenue shortfall problem. It's not a expense structure problem.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that you and Defining Wellness, Daniel, have sort of dialed in that recipe. Would you say that you've kind of got that dialed in, or you're still tinkering around the edges for that?
Well, I would say both, because I don't think you can have anything. I don't think anything stays dialed in if you're not tinkering around the edges on a daily basis. But I do think we have a simple model, and with the particularly with the bed filling component, we only have a couple levers to pull, which makes experimenting with new strategies easy. If you've got like a 10-channel sales structure to fill your beds, like you don't know what to try, and there's no way to really test whether a new strategy is going to work unless you leave all the other 9 variables untouched, which is a risk, So I think we have a sophisticated system, but a simple system, and it's been working for us.
We are consistently telling the truth about who we are and what we do. And imagine that. It's that simple.
I mean, I'm smiling ear to ear because that's my marketing. That's been my recipe for marketing forever.
If relationships become transactions, we will fail. We talked about this yesterday. At least from where I sit, we want to know your husband's names, your kids' names, when's your birthday. If your dog died, we want to. We need to know. We want to know all these things. This isn't. And we're going to tell you the truth about what we're good at and what we're not good at. We're good at a lot of stuff, but not everyone's a good fit for us. And if we just tell the truth, and we do it on Google, we do it on social media, we do it on business development, we do it at alumni. If staff is saying, if we're all telling the truth, which we are, it works. It's not that complicated. It's consistency, and it's consistency as far as the activity goes, and it's consistency as far as the messaging goes.
I'm extraordinarily proud of where we are and what we're doing. And the irony of it is I've worked at a bunch of not-for-profits, but as a person in long-term recovery, I've never felt prouder than I do here as far as we're meeting the mission.
Yeah.
We are meeting the mission here. We are helping a lot of people, and we're helping a lot of people who aren't going to get help anywhere else. And they're certainly not going to get help of this quality anywhere else.
That leads me, first of all, what a beautiful sentiment. And that leads me to this notion of leadership and legacy. And it just sets it up really nicely. Drew, as you think about what you've done and what you're doing, and then what you'd like to make sure goes beyond, the work we're doing today. What are your thoughts in terms of that pride and the legacy? Is like, how do you keep fueling that?
Getting up every morning and doing this work. I don't know. I don't know what the future brings. However, I know that what we're doing now is very important work. I know that as long as this team is together, we're going to continue to, as you say, tinker around the edges and keep focused on that mission. And I believe that with the people we have in place here, regardless of where defining wellness goes, each of these people will continue to do that important work. And I think that helping the people here find that career path, find the confidence to do the work, find the skill set to do the work, get a firsthand close-up glimpse of what it looks like to do the work the right way. I think that's an incredible legacy.
Drew, I've known you for a long time, and one thing that I know is that you are always willing to extend that hand to then pull the next generation forward, and that's beautiful. And I see you do it all the time, and you just speak to the leadership team here. Daniel, I'm going to look at you and just say, how does that strike you?
When I was only, I'm obviously we all know I haven't been in the field that long, but when I'm sitting in a room with you guys, and then, what's the name of that steakhouse we went to in Dallas? Do you remember when we were the Burning Tree tournament? Anyway, it's this historic, I can't believe I'm blanking on this steakhouse in Dallas, but I'm sitting here 2 years in the industry in between Rick Hubbard, Doug Lyons, and Drew Rothermel, and I'm like thinking to myself, there are people that would kill to be at this table right now. And I'm just soaking it in. And he has helped me tremendously, which I'm eternally grateful for. So, yeah.
I totally forgotten about that dinner, but that was good. That was a good one.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah, guys, I know this feels a little kind of we are the world, at the moment, but I will say it's like, we are in a people business. And so it's and I think one of the things that we have an opportunity and an obligation to do is to continue to pour into the people that are going to move that forward. And Drew, you do that so well.
And I learned that early on. Doug Tiemann, who was the CEO at Cairn when I was there, he was very adamant that, there's nothing about what we do that's secret. There's no proprietary. There's nothing proprietary to what we do, and anyone that wants to learn how to do it, we're going to help them learn how to do it, and make resources available. And I think that as people in the field, people in long-term recovery, we have we have an obligation to make sure that people that are doing this work know what they're doing, and mentorship is the best way to pass that on.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, I think we are going to start to bring this to a close. I mean, this has been, Drew, every time we have an opportunity to sit like this, I learn something and you know, my respect grows deeper. Anything that you'd like to share in, you know, on this podcast in terms of either wisdom or something that you'd like our listeners to know?
You know, I think that for you know, people who are not familiar with defining wellness, I think that, you know, what we're doing here in Mississippi is a special calling in a special community that really needs what we're offering. And I think that the work that's done to build out a team and a culture, and I know we're going to do an episode on culture at some point, it's been extraordinary work, and we're starting to see the results of it. But you know, the stuff, it takes time, it takes commitment, it takes the right people, it takes making some mistakes with people, and you know, promptly acknowledging your mistakes and correcting it and moving on. And we've been doing we've been doing a good job of that, I believe. And you know, super excited about, you know, where the next 2 years take this organization.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. Jeff, really appreciate you assisting with this hosting. And
It's been a blast for me, Daniel.
yeah, I'm glad you're here, Drew. Thank you. You have anything else you want to share, Jeff?
No, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and no, I mean, why don't you take us out, Daniel?
Yeah, I'll take us out. To anybody and everybody listening, we really appreciate your support. Check out our website, www.definingwellness.com. For any and all information, feel free to reach out to any of us. My email is daniel@definingwellness.com. Come see the place, come meet us. You know, this is one of those places where, especially if you're local, we can sit here and talk about it all day long, but I think having people come see it for themselves and
I think you need to come on campus. If you want to really feel what goes on here.
It's a special place.
It is a special place.
So with that, like, subscribe, all major streaming platforms, and we look forward to seeing you next week.